As sports history fans, we often reminisce about the legends. Willis Reed limping on to the NBA Finals court, Curt Schilling's bloody sock, Kerry Strug's courageous dismount, and so many more. These moments often define sports history. But what about the countless injuries that did not become legends, or careers that were derailed due to inadequate care? That's where this episode's sponsor comes in. Introducing to you, ILP Sports Consultants, your trusted sports injury partner, available 24/7. Brian Maelli at ILP Sports Consultants has over 20 years of experience in the orthopedic and sports medicine industry, and he has worked with athletes across the gamut, from youth to amateurs, professionals, in almost every sport played in the United States of America, accommodating athletes at every stage of their career. This adaptability ensures that ILP services are perfectly tailored to your skill level, no matter where you are in your athletic journey. With ILP, you are in control. Choose the steps that matter most to you. Diagnosis, treatment plan, recovery, or the whole journey. ILP services are tailored to your unique needs. Rushing for care is a common pitfall, leading to future problems. ILP Sports Consultants helps you make the right decisions, ensuring that you receive timely and safe care. And here's a bonus. Brian hosts the Injured List podcast, sharing insights and athlete stories you won't want to miss. Whether you're a concerned parent or grandparent, or an athlete yourself seeking guidance, ILP Sports Consultants is your beacon of hope in sports injury management. Visit ilpsports.com today. That's the letters ilpsports.com. ILP Sports Consultants, where your well-being is the priority and your recovery is the mission. Choose ILP Sports Consultants for a healthier sports journey, helping you get back in the game the smart way. This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
Hi folks, welcome again to another episode of Pro Football in the 1970s. I'm your host Joe Zagorski, and we're going to be talking about this episode, a bicentennial uprising. The year is 1976. The nation that we call the United States of America was celebrating its 200th birthday. It was a grand celebration from sea to shining sea for 365 days. It almost seemed appropriate that the New England Patriots would invest in the patriotic fervor of the time by having their best season so far in the decade of the 1970s. You could make an argument that the Patriots, and not the Dallas Cowboys, were the real America's team. They naturally had red, white, and blue uniforms. Their team played their home games in the region of the country where the American Revolution began, and for their logo, they had a continental soldier perched as a center ready to snap the football. What more could you ask for in the form of patriotism? Well, the New England Patriots certainly gave their fans much more in 1976, a playoff berth to be exact. They had a miserable 3-11 record in 1975. The Patriots in 1976 were a much different team, however. They won quite a few games that nobody felt that they had any business winning, en route to an 11-3 record and the AFC wildcard spot. Now, how did they do that? Well, on paper, it seemed like it was a near impossible task to pull off. There were several strong powerhouse teams in the NFL in 1976, and many of them happened to find their way onto New England's schedule. In the first month of that year, the Patriots upset the Miami Dolphins 30-14, and they were the defending and then they had to play the defending world champion Pittsburgh Steelers. They beat them 30-27. And then finally, in that first month, they had to play the future world champion Oakland Raiders, and they romped all over them 48-17. Now notice how the Patriots offense averaged 36 points scored in those three games. If your team is scoring an average of 36 points a game, it is very likely that you are going to win those games, especially in the early 1970s, or the mid-1970s, pardon me. Now, those three victories set the tone for what was to follow. Another big reason for New England's 11-3 record in that bicentennial season of 1976 was the fact that they were able to defeat most of the teams that they were favored to beat. It sounds like a little thing, but it was actually very important in deciding if they would be in the hunt for the playoffs or not. The Patriots crushed the New York Jets 41-7 in the 6th week of the year. They later repeated that feat by beating the division rival Jets once again by a score of 38-24 in the 11th week of the 76th season. Most every NFL team goes through a slump each year. It can be a small 1 or 2 game slump, or it can be even a more problematic 6 or 7 game slump. The 1976 Patriots never lost in consecutive weeks, meaning that they were always able to rebound after a loss. They were also not above being upset, as their untimely 30-10 loss at the hand of the Detroit Lions in the 5th week of that year showed. But they came back after such a defeat and recorded another victory to get them back on the right track. But possibly the most impressive part of New England's 1976 season occurred during the final 6 weeks. They managed to beat every team that they played during that time, and that 6-game winning streak was what allowed them to get into the playoffs. During those 6 games, they beat Buffalo, Baltimore, the Jets, Denver, New Orleans, and Tampa Bay. Now, the Patriots' running game was easily the most impressive segment of their offense. Their runners accumulated a total of 2,948 rushing yards in 1976, which was the second highest total in the entire league. Sam Bam Cunningham, Don Calhoun, Andy Johnson, and quarterback Steve Grogan were never timid when it came to carrying the football. None of these players reached the 1,000-yard plateau, but the fact that they were able to distinguish their carries so evenly proved to their adversaries that the Patriots were intent on sharing the accolades. New England would go on to play the Raiders in Oakland during the AFC divisional playoffs. Now they, as you can remember, had crushed the Raiders earlier in the season, and for most of their playoff game against the Raiders, it appeared as if they would once again be able to beat them. But Oakland made a comeback, and New England made a couple of costly mistakes that limited their chances of victory. Then a controversial roughing the passer penalty on the Raiders' final drive placed the ball just inches away from the Patriots' goal line. That line was crossed a moment later, and the dream of a New England Super Bowl appearance was silenced. Despite their bitter 21-17 loss at Oakland in the AFC divisional playoffs, the 1976 New England Patriots have been more successful than they had been in many years. They were a Cinderella team that flourished in the midst of our bicentennial year, and they were quite simply one of the most exciting NFL teams in the entire decade of the 1970s. Now for the trivia question for this episode: who was the head coach of the 1976 New England Patriots? Once again, thanks a lot for listening in to Pro Football in the 1970s. I'm your host, Joe Zagorski. I look forward to chatting with you again on the next episode.
Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, aka the Football History Dude, and I wanted to thank you for stopping by to listen to another episode here on the Sports History Network. Our podcasters are passionate about uncovering and sharing sports stories from yesteryear. And if you didn't know it already, we have over 30 shows across the network covering all sorts of sports history topics. In fact, here's a glimpse into one of our awesome podcasts here on the network.
Join George Bozica, the president of the PFRA, and myself, John Bozica, each month for the Professional Football Researchers Association official podcast. We'll discuss the history of the game, the many names of the game, and so many different things for you, making the history of football not only entertaining, but fun at the same time, as we join you on the Sports History Network on the official PFRA podcast.
How about that? I bet you're super hyped to go listen to that new podcast, right? Well, to learn about this show and all the other podcasts on the network, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com/podcasts. Again, that's sportshistorynetwork.com/podcasts. Head over there today to find your next favorite sports history podcast.